My name is Riya, and I'm 29 years old. If someone had asked me what family meant just a few weeks ago, I would have smiled and said it was the one place where love always found a way to survive. I believed blood was stronger than greed, stronger than pride, stronger than money. I believed that because of one man, my grandfather. I wish I had known how wrong I was. The morning everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I was sitting in my small apartment, answering emails before heading to work. Rain tapped softly against my living room window, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the air. My phone buzzed across the table. The caller ID read Ryan. My older brother rarely called unless he wanted something, so I hesitated before answering. Hello. His voice was unusually cheerful. Hey, little sister. That alone made me suspicious. What do you want? He laughed. Straight to business, huh? I have work, Ryan. There was a brief pause before he spoke again. I figured you should hear it from me before the lawyer calls. My stomach tightened. Hear what? Then he said the sentence that shattered everything I thought I knew. Grandpa left his entire estate to me. You won't get a single dime. Silence. I honestly thought I had misheard him. What? You heard me. That's impossible. Nope. Our grandfather would never do that. Ryan chuckled. Well, apparently he did. My hands began to shake. Our grandfather loved us both. He loved me more. No. Believe whatever makes you feel better. I stood up so quickly that my coffee spilled across the table. Ryan, stop joking. I'm not joking. Tell me this isn't funny. I'm serious. The will was read this morning. You didn't even invite me. You weren't required. Every word felt like another knife. What exactly did Grandpa leave you? Ryan let the silence stretch for dramatic effect. The house. I closed my eyes. The lake cabin. My breathing became uneven. The investment accounts. I leaned against the kitchen counter. The antique collection. I couldn't speak. And the family business. Then he laughed. You. Another pause. Nothing. I felt like the room had suddenly become too small. That's impossible. You keep saying that. Because it's true. You'll see when the lawyer contacts you. Before I could respond, he added one last sentence. Looks like Grandpa finally figured out which grandchild actually mattered. Then he hung up. I stared at my phone for what felt like forever. Nothing made sense. My grandfather wasn't the kind of man who played favorites. He used to tell us, money divides people only when they let it. Character is the only inheritance worth fighting for. Those weren't empty words. He lived by them. When Ryan and I were children, Grandpa never bought one of us a gift without buying the other one something just as meaningful. If Ryan got a bicycle, I got a piano. If I received books, Ryan got tools for his workshop. Everything was balanced. Everything was fair. At least, that's what I had always believed. The phone slipped from my hand onto the couch. I sat there, unable to breathe normally. 3 weeks earlier, I had held Grandpa's hand in his hospital room. He looked weak, but his eyes were still bright. Promise me something, he had whispered. Anything. No matter what happens after I'm gone, don't let money tell you who your family is. I smiled through tears. I promise. He squeezed my hand. And remember. He paused, catching his breath. People always reveal who they really are when they think they've already won. At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. Now those words echoed in my mind. Had Grandpa known something? Had he expected this? I couldn't sit still anymore. I grabbed my purse, my keys, and drove straight to my parents' house. The moment I walked inside, I knew something was wrong. My mother avoided eye contact. My father barely looked up from his chair. Ryan was sitting comfortably in Grandpa's favorite recliner with his feet crossed, sipping coffee like he owned the place. He smiled the second he saw me. There she is. I ignored him. Mom, she sighed. I'm sorry, sweetheart. You knew. She nodded. When? This morning. And nobody thought to call me? Ryan answered instead. Why ruin your day? I turned toward him. You think this is funny? I think life isn't always fair. You manipulated Grandpa. He laughed loudly enough for everyone in the room to hear. Can you prove that? No. Then stop accusing me. I looked at my father. Dad, he rubbed his forehead. The will is legally signed. That doesn't mean it's right. It's done. His calm voice hurt more than shouting ever could. So that's it? Nobody answered. Ryan stood and walked toward me. You know what the best part is? I refused to answer. The estate is worth more than $12 million. He smiled wider. And every single penny belongs to me. I stared into his eyes, hoping to find even a tiny trace of the brother I had grown up with. He wasn't there anymore. Standing in front of me wasn't my brother. It was someone I barely recognized. Then, just as I turned to leave, I noticed something strange. On the bookshelf behind Grandpa's chair sat the old wooden chess box he treasured more than anything else. It was slightly open. That caught my attention immediately. Grandpa never, ever left that box open. Not once in my entire life. Ryan noticed where I was looking. In a split second, his confident smile disappeared. He rushed across the room and slammed the lid shut. Don't touch that. His reaction lasted less than 2 seconds. But it was enough. For the first time since his phone call, I stopped feeling sorry for myself. Because I realized something. My grandfather had spent his entire life thinking 10 steps ahead. And if Ryan was suddenly terrified of one old chess box, then maybe the game wasn't over yet. The image of Ryan slamming that old wooden chess box shut stayed in my mind the entire drive home. It wasn't just that he had closed it. It was the panic in his eyes. For a man who had spent the entire day bragging about inheriting $12 million, he suddenly looked terrified over a dusty chess box that had probably been sitting on Grandpa's bookshelf for 20 years. Something wasn't right. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying Grandpa's final words. People always reveal who they really are when they think they've already won. At 3 a.m, I sat up in bed and opened the photo gallery on my phone. Most people save vacation pictures or screenshots. Mine was filled with photos of Grandpa. Pictures of us fishing at the lake. Pictures of birthdays. Pictures of Sunday dinners. And then I found one that made me stop breathing for a second. It had been taken almost 6 months earlier. Grandpa was sitting in his study, smiling at the camera while holding that exact chess box in his lap. I zoomed in. There was a tiny brass key hanging from a chain around his neck. The same key he always wore. Except, at his funeral, I never saw that key. Neither had anyone else. Where had it gone? The next morning, my phone rang. It was the law office handling Grandpa's estate. Ms. Riya? Yes, this is Margaret Collins. Your grandfather's attorney requested that all beneficiaries attend a formal reading of his personal letters this afternoon. I frowned. I thought the will had already been read. It has. Then why am I invited? I'm afraid I can't discuss that over the phone. She paused. But your grandfather specifically requested your presence. My heart skipped. Did he leave me something? I'm sorry, Ms. Riya. You'll have to hear everything during the meeting. The call ended before I could ask another question. 3 hours later, I walked into the attorney's office. Ryan was already there, leaning back in his chair with that same smug smile. Our parents sat beside him. Neither looked happy. Margaret Collins entered carrying several thick folders. She adjusted her glasses and smiled politely. Thank you all for coming. Ryan crossed his arms. Can we make this quick? I have a meeting. Margaret ignored his comment. Your grandfather prepared something in addition to his will. Ryan looked annoyed. What kind of something? A series of handwritten letters. He rolled his eyes. Seriously? They contain personal instructions. She picked up the first envelope. This one is addressed to the entire family. She unfolded the paper carefully. Even from where I sat, I recognized Grandpa's handwriting instantly. Strong. Neat. Confident. Margaret began reading. If you're hearing this letter, it means I've already left this world. First, know that I loved each of you differently, but never unequally. Love isn't measured by dollars. It is measured by character. The room fell silent. If money has already created arguments among you, then I am disappointed, but not surprised. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Margaret continued. There is one thing I ask of all of you. Do not rush to celebrate or mourn what you believe you've received. Every truth has its proper time. Ryan scoffed. What does that even mean? Margaret calmly folded the letter. Those were his exact words. Ryan looked irritated. Anything else? Yes. She reached for another envelope. This one is addressed specifically to Ms. Riya. Ryan's smile disappeared. What? Margaret looked at him. Your grandfather instructed that only Riya hear this letter. Ryan leaned forward. I'm family. I'm simply following his written instructions. He slammed his hand on the table. I have a legal right. No, Margaret interrupted firmly. You don't. Ryan's jaw tightened. I followed Margaret into a smaller office. She closed the door behind us before handing me the envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was only one handwritten page. My dear Riya, if you're reading this, then events have unfolded almost exactly as I expected. I froze. You have always trusted people because your heart is kind. Never lose that kindness. But remember, kindness and blindness are not the same thing. Tears blurred my vision. There is something hidden where we finished our final game of chess. You will know it when you see it. I read the sentence again. Trust no one until you find it. That was all. No explanation. No clue. Just those words. Margaret watched quietly. Did that mean anything to you? I nodded slowly. I think maybe. She lowered her voice. Your grandfather visited me 2 weeks before he passed away. I looked up. He asked several unusual legal questions. What kind of questions? He wanted to know how fraud affected inheritance rights. I stared at her. What? He also asked what would happen if someone pressured an elderly person into changing legal documents. A chill ran through my body. Did he say why? No. She hesitated. But he looked worried. I thanked her and walked back into the conference room. Ryan stood immediately. What did it say? I smiled politely. Nothing important. He narrowed his eyes. You're lying. Maybe. For the first time since Grandpa died. Ryan looked nervous. When the meeting ended, everyone walked toward the parking lot. As I unlocked my car, I noticed someone watching me. It was Mr. Harold Benson, Grandpa's oldest friend. He had known my grandfather for over 50 years. He slowly walked over. I've been looking for you. Mr. Benson? He glanced around to make sure Ryan wasn't nearby. Then he slipped something into my hand. It was a small brass key. The exact same key Grandpa had always worn around his neck. My heart nearly stopped. Where did you get this? Your grandfather gave it to me 3 days before he passed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He said, Mr. Benson whispered, only give this to Riya after the family starts fighting over the inheritance. My hands tightened around the key. He knew this would happen? Mr. Benson nodded sadly. He knew more than any of us. Before I could ask another question, a black luxury SUV pulled into the parking lot. Ryan jumped out. His face turned pale the moment he saw the key in my hand. Where did you get that? I instinctively closed my fist. Ryan took several fast steps toward me. Riya, give it to me. For the first time in my life. My brother wasn't acting confident. He was acting desperate. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Whatever that tiny brass key opened, Ryan was willing to do anything to keep me from finding out. Ryan's eyes never left my closed fist. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The parking lot around us buzzed with ordinary life, cars pulling in, people chatting, phones ringing, but everything else faded into the background. All I could see was the fear on my brother's face. Not anger. Not arrogance. Fear. Give me the key, Riya, he said again, forcing a smile that looked painfully fake. I slipped the key into my purse. I don't think so. His jaw tightened. You don't even know what it opens. Then why do you want it so badly? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Mr. Benson stepped between us. That's enough, Ryan. Ryan glared at him. This is a family matter. Mr. Benson didn't move. So was your grandfather's trust, and you didn't seem too concerned about honoring that. Ryan's face turned bright red. Without another word, he climbed back into his SUV and sped out of the parking lot. I watched until the vehicle disappeared. Then I turned to Mr. Benson. Please, tell me what's going on. He sighed deeply. I promised your grandfather I wouldn't explain everything. Then explain what you can. He looked toward the cloudy afternoon sky before speaking. About 8 months ago, your grandfather told me he believed someone in the family was lying to him. My heart sank. Did he say who? No, but he said that person had become obsessed with money. I didn't need to guess who he meant. Mr. Benson continued. He wasn't angry. He was heartbroken. Those words hurt more than I expected. My grandfather always believed our family would stay together. Mr. Benson smiled sadly. He spent his entire life building more than wealth. He built a legacy. He hoped his grandchildren would protect it. I swallowed hard. What about the key? A faint smile appeared on his face. I honestly don't know what it opens. He never told me. He only said one sentence. What sentence? When Riya finds what's hidden, the truth will finally have a voice. Goosebumps covered my arms. That evening, I drove straight to Grandpa's lake house. Technically, Ryan now claimed he owned it, but no one had changed the locks yet. As I stepped inside, the familiar scent of cedar wood and old books wrapped around me like a warm blanket. Every corner of the house held a memory. The fireplace where Grandpa read stories every Christmas. The kitchen where he taught me how to bake apple pie. The porch where we'd sit for hours watching the sunset over the lake. For a moment, I forgot why I was there. Then I remembered the letter. There is something hidden where we finished our final game of chess. Our last chess game. I closed my eyes, trying to remember. It had been only 3 weeks before Grandpa passed away. He wasn't strong enough to sit in his study anymore. So where had we played? Then it hit me. The sunroom. I hurried down the hallway. The small wooden chess table was still exactly where we'd left it. The pieces remained frozen in the middle of our unfinished game. Grandpa had insisted we stop because he was getting tired. I'll beat you next time, he joked. There had never been a next time. I sat in the same chair I'd used that afternoon. Slowly, I looked around. Nothing seemed unusual. Bookshelves. Windows. Plants. An old rug. Then my eyes dropped to the chess table itself. There was a tiny brass keyhole hidden beneath the edge of the tabletop. My heartbeat quickened. With trembling hands, I removed the key from my purse. It fit perfectly. I turned it. Click. A hidden compartment slid open beneath the board. Inside wasn't money. There weren't diamonds. No cash. Instead, there was a thick brown envelope, a flash drive, and a leather journal. I carefully lifted everything out. The envelope had my name written across it. For Riya and only Riya. Before I could open it, a loud crash echoed through the house. Someone had kicked open the front door. My heart nearly stopped. Footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Coming toward the sunroom. I quickly shoved the journal and flash drive into my backpack. The envelope stayed in my hands. Ryan burst into the room. His breathing was heavy. His face twisted with rage. I knew you'd come here. I stood up. How did you get in? He laughed. I own this place now. His eyes immediately locked onto the open compartment beneath the chessboard. His expression changed instantly. You found it. I said nothing. He stepped closer. Give me everything. No. Riya. His voice became unusually calm. You don't understand. I understand enough. No, you don't. He held out his hand. Please. That single word shocked me. Ryan had never begged for anything. Whatever Grandpa left. He continued. It belongs to me. It was addressed to me. It doesn't matter. It matters to Grandpa. His patience snapped. He lunged toward me. Instinctively, I stepped backward. The envelope slipped from my hands. Papers scattered across the floor. Ryan dropped to his knees, desperately trying to gather them before I could read them. But one page slid across the hardwood floor, stopping right at my feet. I picked it up. At the very top, in bold letters, were 5 words that made my blood run cold. Private investigation report. Below that, a photograph. It showed Ryan, standing inside Grandpa's hospital room, handing a thick envelope of cash to one of the hospital staff members. I slowly looked up. Ryan had gone completely pale. Riya. His voice cracked. I can explain. Before he could say another word, I reached into the folder and pulled out another document. Then another. And another. Each one was worse than the last. Bank records, phone logs, copies of altered legal paperwork. Every document pointed toward one horrifying possibility. This wasn't just a greedy grandson trying to claim a bigger inheritance. Someone had carefully planned this. For months. And as I turned the final page, I saw Grandpa's handwritten note across the bottom. If you're reading this, my dear Riya, then you've just discovered the man who betrayed our family. But the greatest secret isn't what he stole, it's who helped him do it. My hands froze. Because suddenly, I realized Ryan hadn't acted alone. I couldn't breathe. My eyes stayed fixed on Grandpa's final handwritten sentence. The greatest secret isn't what he stole, it's who helped him do it. I slowly looked up at Ryan. His face had lost every trace of confidence. The man who had laughed at me just 2 days earlier now looked like someone whose entire world was collapsing. Who helped you? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Ryan. Still nothing. I held up the investigation report. Who helped you? His shoulders dropped. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Those words told me everything. So it's true. He covered his face with both hands. I never wanted to hurt Grandpa. But you did. I only wanted what I thought I deserved. I felt tears burning in my eyes. You bribed hospital staff. You changed legal documents. You lied to the entire family. He looked at me with watery eyes. I made mistakes. No. I shook my head. Mistakes happen once. This was a plan. Before Ryan could respond, another voice came from the doorway. She's right. We both turned. Margaret Collins, Grandpa's attorney, stood there with 2 police detectives beside her. Ryan's face turned white. Margaret. She stepped inside. When Mr. Benson called and told me Riya had found the hidden compartment, I contacted the authorities. Ryan backed away. You had no right. I had every right. She held up another folder. Especially after your grandfather instructed me to release these documents if the evidence hidden in the chess table was ever discovered. Ryan stared at the folder. What is that? The original will. Silence filled the room. Margaret carefully placed the document on the table. This is the legally executed will your grandfather signed 6 months before his death. She opened it to the final page. The signature matched perfectly. Then she placed another document beside it. And this, she said firmly, is the altered version submitted after your grandfather was hospitalized. Even without being a handwriting expert, I could see the difference. The signatures looked similar, but they weren't identical. One was strong and steady. The other was shaky, forced. Margaret looked directly at Ryan. The forensic examiner confirmed yesterday that this signature was forged. Ryan stumbled backward. No. The estate was never yours. One detective stepped forward. We've also interviewed the hospital employee in these photographs. Ryan's breathing became rapid. He confessed. My brother slowly closed his eyes. He admitted accepting money to give you private access to your grandfather while he was heavily medicated. I felt sick. Grandpa hadn't simply been betrayed. He had been manipulated during the weakest days of his life. Margaret continued. Your grandfather realized something was wrong before he passed. He contacted a private investigator. He secretly gathered evidence. And he prepared everything in case the fraud succeeded. I looked down at Grandpa's journal. For the first time, I opened it. Every page was dated. Every page documented Ryan's behavior. Ryan keeps asking about my investments. Today he insisted I should simplify my estate. He became angry when I refused. I fear someone may try to change my wishes after I'm gone. The final entry was written only 4 days before Grandpa died. If you're reading this, Riya, then my plan worked. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I knew you would never stop searching for the truth. I couldn't protect my family forever. But I knew you would protect my legacy. I could barely see through my tears. The detectives turned toward Ryan. Ryan Mitchell. One of them spoke calmly. You're under arrest for fraud, forgery, financial exploitation of an elderly person, and conspiracy. Ryan looked at me one last time. I'm your brother. I wiped away my tears. You stopped acting like my brother a long time ago. As the detectives placed handcuffs on his wrists, he whispered, I'm sorry. For a second, I wanted to believe him. Then I remembered Grandpa lying in that hospital bed. Weak, trusting, completely unaware that the grandson he loved was trying to steal everything he had spent a lifetime building. No apology could erase that. A few months later, the court officially declared the altered will invalid. Grandpa's original will was restored exactly as he had written it. The lake house, the family business, the investment accounts, the antique collection. Everything was distributed according to Grandpa's true wishes. And despite everything Ryan had done, Grandpa had never intended to leave him with nothing. His original will divided the estate fairly between both grandchildren. Ryan's greed had cost him the inheritance he already had. The judge ordered him to repay every dollar he had taken illegally. He was sentenced to prison, and his professional reputation disappeared almost overnight. As for me, I moved into Grandpa's lake house for a while. Not because it was valuable, but because it still felt like home. Every evening, I sat on the same porch where Grandpa and I had watched the sunset together. One afternoon, while organizing his study, I found a small envelope tucked inside one of his favorite books. It hadn't been part of the investigation. It wasn't hidden as evidence. It was simply waiting for me. Inside was a short handwritten note. My dear Riya, if you found this, then everything is finally over. Never measure your wealth by what sits in your bank account. Measure it by the people who stand beside you when you have nothing. Money can build houses. Character builds homes. And remember, the greatest inheritance I could ever leave you was never my estate. It was the courage to choose honesty when dishonesty seems easier. I'm already proud of you. Love always, Grandpa. I held that letter against my heart and cried harder than I had at his funeral. Not because I had one, but because I finally understood what Grandpa had been trying to teach me all along. The estate was never the real inheritance. The real inheritance was integrity. Ryan chased millions and lost everything. I chose the truth, even when it hurt. In the end, I didn't just inherit my grandfather's estate. I inherited his name, his values, his legacy. And that was worth far more than $12 million. Sometimes people ask me if I ever forgave my brother. My answer is always the same. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending the past never happened. It means refusing to let someone else's betrayal control the rest of your life. I hope Ryan truly changes one day. I really do. But whether he does or not, I still keep Grandpa's old wooden chess set on the table in my living room. Not because I enjoy the game, but because every time I look at it, I'm reminded of the lesson that changed my life forever. The smartest player isn't the one who celebrates too early. It's the one who quietly plans 10 moves ahead. And my grandfather never lost his final game.